Okay, I am doing a little solar dyeing experiment. So I have dry border Leicester locks, dry Targhee, and then I have some colors. And I'm going to drop some colors on top of all of these, with my mask on, of course. And then pour my citric acid over them and try solar dyeing. So I have a mask on. It's not the best mask for this, but it's something. And I have my colors ready to go. So I did blue, purple, black. This one I did red, orange, yellow, and green. This one I did red, orange, yellow. This one I did red, brown, yellow. And this one I did yellow, green, and orange. So we're gonna see what happens. Hopefully I'll get kind of a fall theme on most of these. So here I have a pot of citric acid and I have a ladle, and I'm going to pour my hot water into my jars and hope that this works. There's my first crazy jar filled. Here I am pouring my citric acid water into my jars. This is jar, I don't know, 2 maybe? Should be fun. Should be fun. So here we go. Here's our next jar. And I'm just pouring the citric acid in and kind of letting the dye strike where it will. And we'll see what happens. So I'm just going to fill this guy up. Here is a jar of locks that I am pouring my hot citric acid water in. This one should have a really fun dye strike. Why not? It's all kinds of fun here, right? Whee! Oops, sorry, there. There, whee! And I'm just going to keep filling this up. Okay, this is the last one. Apparently there's a froggy. Oh yes, this one's going to be particularly fun. Whoops! Missed a little bit. Alright, we'll see what happens. So here's my solar dye experiment. And we'll see what they look like maybe tomorrow. So, yep, solar dye experiment number 1. Here we are an hour later. And this was kind of unexpected. You can see the colors kind of settling in various areas. This one's super unexpected here. Look at this. It's like all the green kind of went to the bottom. Or the brown. I'm not sure what color that was. This one is turning out much peachier than I thought it would be. These are the locks. I have no idea what's happening with these. Or these, because this one's the purple, blue, and black. So, who knows? Looks like a bruise right now. So that's an hour in. So here we are at 2 hours. You can definitely see the color strike in this one, and this one, and this one. And the locks are starting to get a little lighter, except for the purple, black, blue jar. But we'll see what happens with that one. I may have put too much dye in them. We'll find out. So here we are at 3 hours. I kind of checked this one and it dripped a little bit. But yep, the dye is still exhausting in this one. And this one. This one maybe. Definitely still exhausting here, but that's a lot lighter than it was the last time I checked it. And then there's this one. The purple, black, blue. Yeah, we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. So now I'm 4 hours in, and my water's still exhausting. Still exhausting. Boy, this one I think is going to be really pretty. Not really what I was going for, but it's going to be super pretty. And these locks are going to be interesting. I hope I have more than just this sort of brown. I mean, the brown's pretty, but We'll find out. Oh, and then there's this one. Well, if nothing else, it's going to be super purple. And I do love purple, so that's okay. So here we are at 5 hours. And from what I read, after 5 hours, most of the dye is supposed to be set. And my water should be clear, but, you know, if I use too much dye stuff, which I clearly did, yeah, then the water definitely won't be clear. So now I have an option. I can let it sit all night, or I can try to pour the dye stuff off onto something else to dye it, which could be fun. So I don't know what to try. So here I am after 6.5 hours, and this one still has a little bit of my color down here in the bottom. We'll see if it all just turns muddy. Hopefully not. This one's actually super kind of fun. So is this one. Be really curious to see what happens when I get this jar out. And then the lock jars, I kind of took this purple and I made it 2 purples because, and we'll see, I'm hoping this will kind of violet up and be more mixed. I just had so much dye in this jar that it wasn't exhausting. And I had more locks, so this is a sort of like experiment 1A, 1B, I don't know, where I'm tossing the not really exhausted dye stuffs on it, and I'm just gonna let it go all night, I think. Just gonna let it go the rest of the night, and then I'll pull these out in the morning and we'll see what we got. Okay, so here we are. I'm outside, and I went ahead and washed these, but I put way too much dye on when I was, well, prepping them. I put way too much dry dye on. So the skeins have just been really hard to exhaust, and as a result I have like worked with them too much, so they're a little bit stickier than they should be. So I'm probably going to end up caking or rescanning these pretty quick. And then the locks look pretty good, but again I'm probably going to have to wash these more because they exhausted and exhausted. So this was the batch that I did after this blue, purple, black, which actually turned out pretty cool. But this was the dye that I poured off onto. Look at how much. This was one whole jar. Then I split this. This was one jar and that was the other jar. These are Border Leicester locks, if you're wondering. And yeah, they're a little bit sticky as well, but they were like that before I dyed them. So anyway, this is what happened. So they look kind of cool, and I learned a lot. Definitely have some rinsing to continue to do. I can see more dye exhausting off of those just from the way they're dripping. So yeah, anyway, that was my little dye experiment, and I learned a ton.